I'm thinking about the fact that my office is in the kitchen. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. It is in the kitchen right now, though. All right. So welcome to another episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast. I am Bryan Lovell here with Mr. John Jones, my terrific co-host, who I learned today through conversation that he's never actually watched an episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast.
That's not true.
Okay.
Okay. So truth on that is, I don't watch me. I already know what I said. I fast forward to the good parts, you and what our guests talk about.
You already know what
I don't need to hear what I already said.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is like when I was talking, you weren't listening?
It's my wicked Boston accent that I don't want to hear.
You're wicked.
I've been down in Florida for 25 years and I still seem to have it. I do.
One of my favorite things is when we go someplace together, everybody always wants to ask, so are you from Boston?
No. What gives it away?
Like it's the most obvious question in the world.
Pretty much.
So anyways, John and I figured we'd have a little bit of fun today. So we're going to wing it a little bit. And what we're going to talk about is we are almost exactly 1 year removed from the start of lockdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's funny, John, last week, you and I, we actually got out. We went down to South Florida for a couple of days. And it was the anniversary week of a mortgage conference we were at in Orlando where things literally started to shut down. Yep. And in fact, I looked at one of the cool things about Facebook is they always show you like your memories and stuff like that. And do you remember we were in this massive hotel by the Convention Center Hotel for a mortgage conference that normally would have been packed.
Thousands of people.
Right? And we were walking through, we did a Facebook Live together.
It's just you and I.
Basically showing we were the only ones in the hotel.
Yep.
And at a normal conference like this,
kind of eerie.
Every restaurant and bar in the place would have been absolutely packed. It'd have been 3-4 deep, people hanging out and talking. And yes, you're right. It was eerie. This place was absolutely empty. And that weekend, we were there on I think that conference was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We got out Sunday afternoon. That was the last day that Disney was open.
Yep.
Before it closed. And I think you mentioned today coming in that this week, today is March 16th, is when like restaurants in the Tampa Bay area.
Yep. I think St. Patrick's Day 2020 was about the last of pre-pandemic
all I know is,
time.
We hit spring break for our kids. My kids are on spring break this week, and then they never took them back.
Yeah, well, we don't want to go down that road again.
Right.
Yeah, here in Florida, we've been blessed. We finished the year out last year that way in 2020 through the summer, and then by fall 2020, we were able to send the kids back or do it. I think it was about 50-50 here.
Yeah.
That half still did the remote learning for the first quarter, and I think now it's probably back towards 80-90% back in school here in Florida. Yeah.
So, John and Isford, we figured we would take some time today, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're a loan originator, and kind of talk about the year, right? Like we're a year almost removed. Things are starting to open up, to your point, but a lot has happened, right? We went into shutdown and we all went to a work from home environment. Certainly that changed the way that we did business. We had to adapt. Where is our business going to come from? How are we going to build relationships and get more referrals? And now it's shifting again, and it's shifting again because things are starting to open back up. Mm-hmm. So we just figured we kind of talk about that a little bit from the perspective of what are some of the things that you should be considering right now in your business based on some of the shifts that are currently going on in the market. And I think, John, one of the first things that comes to my mind, and we've talked about this, is the change in our professional standards.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we went from, probably like, the first couple of weeks via Zoom, working from home, still getting up, showering, doing our same routine at home, shirt and ties, dressing, wearing pants. Yes. And then slowly over, I think probably as we rolled into maybe mid-late April, shorts started to get put on, maybe some sweatpants, and then by midsummer we were all flip-flop shorts and maybe a t-shirt.
Yeah,
so things definitely started to drift into very casual.
Yeah, and it's certainly more for me. And I listen, I realize attire or dress is one thing, but I think you're using that as an example of how things progressed over time in terms of your professional standard, right? Like, hey, I started off wearing slacks and a dress shirt like I am today. I moved from that to wearing jeans and a dress shirt like John is today. That wasn't a dig.
Was that a dig?
But then we moved from, oh, okay, well, now I'm going to wear jeans and my polo shirt, and that changed from jeans and a polo shirt to shorts and a polo shirt that eventually became a t-shirt, which eventually became, I never got out of my gym clothes, and 2 o'clock rolls around and I still haven't taken a shower. And so that's just an analogy of how professional standards slip over time. So the question I would pose to those who are listening is, what other professional standards in your business changed over time? And, you know, John, I think our conversation is about what would be some of the common ones that we would probably see.
I mean, probably just not getting out and doing the one-on-ones. You know, it's been hard over the past year. Those of us that did them via Zoom and still, you know, stayed connected, you can see it in their business, on their purchase business. You know, the transactions are still up and, you know, even stronger than they were a year ago. And for a lot of us, it was, you know, very casual, working at home and not doing the networking and the things that we should have been doing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I mean, I circle that back down to, you know, it's a full year. You laugh and you talk about, you know, the our wardrobe, dress attire, but, well, crap, you know, weight for a lot of us became an issue, right? Our standards, you know, for me, we talked about our routines, getting up early, going to the gym before work, coming home, showering, getting the kids off to school. That kind of all stopped, you know, including the gym. The gyms were shut down. Yeah. You know, I wasn't set up to work out at home. And over the next, you know, the first 3, 4, 5 months, I went on the, you know, our interest rates were dropping. My weight was going up.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And congratulations, you've lost about 20 pounds here recently, and I'm still trying to get back down. But to that point, a lot of times the standards that we have in our life or in our business are based off of triggers. Okay. So like for me, one of my triggers, and this is both a professional trigger and a personal life trigger. One of my triggers has always been getting my kids to school. So I have an elementary age daughter I take to school every day. That means I leave the house around 7 a.m. Well, she just recently went back to school because we were doing e-learning.
First half.
But before that, because I didn't have to get any kids to school, like I didn't necessarily need to set an alarm because chances were I wasn't going to sleep past 8 o'clock. Right. And it wasn't like I was taking a shower anyway, and I was wearing my gym clothes to work. So if I got up at 8, I could easily be at work by 8:30 because it's only like a 30-foot walk to my office, right? Well, the professional standard that changed was when my workday started, like when I started getting in that mindset of getting into work. And I know you were an athlete in high school and college. I was an athlete in my younger days too. And I remember a coach always talking about being mentally prepared for the game. Did you ever, I'm sure you went through that, right? And I think our work day is the same.
Sure.
Right? It's being mentally prepared for the workday. But when you didn't really give yourself the time to get mentally prepared for the workday, you start off maybe a little bit sluggish in that workday.
100%. Yeah.
But I think the personal side for that, to bring this full circle for me, was that trigger to take the kids to school was also my trigger to get up and work out. So before COVID, I would get up early in the morning, a couple of days a week, do a workout, take a shower, take the kids to school. Right. So I was waking up earlier. What this did for me is it caused the wake up to be later in the day and just a much slower start, right? Yep. And now that for me the kids are back to school, I've started working out in that that trigger. And here's the lesson that I've learned. You know, you talk about we don't learn anything success, we only learn in failure. My failure was I needed to identify what the trigger was sooner and put new triggers in place. And I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna give you a little credit though. We were going through some crazy times in the mortgage business. I mean, so fast track back to a year ago, when this all started, we went remote. I mean, for us, you know, everybody was shut down, but interest rates decided just to do us a huge favor.
Huge favor, yeah.
I mean, a massive favor, and our phones didn't stop ringing, right? I mean, our business virtually started to double, you know, within a 60-day period, and
pretty quickly.
Everybody was set up quickly at home, and I think from sales to all the way through every aspect of operations in our industry, it's been a crazy 12 months. Yes. I mean, busier than any other time in the mortgage business.
Correct.
In history, we broke a record this past year, 2020, and predicted to be right at that level in 2021, maybe even exceed it. We'll see how rates play out, but it's been, I think, a long, tough ride for us adjusting to that in our industry. As rates have ticked up a little bit, it'll be interesting to see now. I think we need to make that pivot that we all made a year ago and start thinking about opportunity back towards our core business, out with realtors, referral partners, purchase business, right? The refis are probably going to slow up a little bit here as rates have ticked up just enough to maybe cool that aspect of our business. But now we're
certainly seeing that. Yeah.
More of a traditional business.
John, you hit a home run, and it was a trigger for me to think of something. I remember when this first laid out, the questions we started having with salespeople, and again, like I was doing webinars and classes that were realtor facing as well as just loan originator facing. And the conversations I was having with those audiences, both of those audiences, was whatever business plan that you made for 2020, you need to crumble that thing up and throw it in the trash. We got to start over, right? Yeah. And for us, a lot of our LOs, they shifted to, hey, I'm going to take advantage of the current rate environment we're in. I'm going to push my chips in on refis. And they did a great job, and we did a lot of volume, and it changed a lot of people's lives. And I think there's a conversation in this podcast about what to do with that now.
Sure.
But what I'm hearing you say is we're at that point again where the market is changing and it's shifting, and we need to take a look at that business plan again. And one of the big things I learned during COVID in the last year was, listen, I've always been a proponent to business planning. In fact, you can go back and look at, we actually have a podcast on business planning that John and I did together, is that a lot of the mistakes we make are we write this business plan, we do it in October or November for the upcoming year, and we put our blinders on, and I'm going to stick with this for the whole year.
Right.
And the reality is, if you're not pulling that thing out and looking at it in different intervals of time, whether that's every couple of months or every quarter or whatever, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because what you're just teaching us right now is it's time for us to pull that business plan out again, that, by the way, we wrote for 2021, because a lot of it is changing again.
Quickly, yes.
Yeah, quickly. And I think that's the same for us in all of our business. We did a call this morning with our sales team. We do every month. It's called Iron Sharpens Iron. And one of the things we spoke to our LOs about today is, our real estate agent partners are facing challenges that are changing for them. And right now, one of those big changes to me is because of lack of inventory and the fact that you can put a home for sale on a Thursday and have multiple offers over ask by Sunday. One of the primary lead generation tools that agents used to have was holding open houses, right? Because if I hold an open house, hopefully I'm going to create some buyer leads for myself. But if I also take it a step further and do some door knocking after my open house and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Neighbors, I want you to know I'm the agent listing 123 Main Street over here. I did an open house today. We had 18 people come through. There are people who are looking to buy your house today. Have you ever thought about selling? Right now, they're not doing open houses because they're flying off of the market so fast. So that opportunity to create a new buyer lead or possibly a new listing lead, that window's gone. So as an agent, if that's been a primary part of your business, you've got to make the shift now to where else am I going to get my leads from? Right.
100%. You need to be a listing agent in this market for sure. If you're working with buyers and buyers only, you've talked to many people. It's probably 5, 10. We've had numbers as high as 75 contracts or offers on one listing.
Could you imagine?
Within 72 hours, which is insane. So you need to have the ability to list property right now. Yeah. And if you're in anywhere essentially in our country right now, we are extremely low in inventory. And if your thoughts were to sell maybe in the next 12 to 24 months, now might be a great time.
Yeah.
It's that short, and literally, like you talk about bid over ask and escalations to offers, it's commonplace. In fact, a couple of people I talked to here in Florida this past week, a lot of buyers are transitioning over to ask family members for help in paying cash and then trying to do financing post-close.
Wow.
So, that's how tight it is and competitive in the market.
Because they need to move quickly.
They want to, they need to move quick. They want the seller to want their offer, right? And when there's financing, that's an extra, if they're already probably going up against a handful of cash offers that are at or above ask.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
So that's becoming, a little bit more common.
So to flip the coin on kind of the subject we're talking on right now is, the adjustment of your business plan. I think, LOs are in a similar position. We've seen rates come up a little bit over the last 4 weeks. We've seen a reduction in the number of refi at-bats that we're getting. By the way, another podcast we did recently on what LOs should be doing in this market with a rising rate environment. But I think that with everything opening back up, starting to, right? And again, we're in Florida. It's a little bit different here, I understand. And the refi game starting to slow down a little bit, we kind of got to refocus, if you're an originator, back on that purchase business. And, to me, you've heard me say before, whether rates are 3% or 13%, agents are always going to sell homes. It is the way to have longevity in this career.
100%.
Is through the purchase market. And I think, we're in a unique market again, even for real estate agents. And, the best way to gain influence with people is to add value to them. And so loan originators today need to be thinking about ways that I can meet an agent at a point of their need, right?
Yeah, you shared a great tip today as just that tool that we offer through MBS Highway, and it's bid over ask, right? And the how much over ask that you're willing to bid on the property to win the deal, and what the time frame is, the number of months before you're back to break even, and then showing appreciation at that point going forward. So, if you're a buyer out there, don't be afraid to maybe bid a little bit over ask, because within 12, 24 months, based on historic appreciation, here at least in the Tampa Bay market, that you're going to make up that over ask. Yeah,
very great tool that our loan originators have available to them. I think the other thing is, and we talked about this too recently, is going back to professional standards. In the environment we were in as loan originators, we were churning and burning refinances. And let's be honest, they're pretty easy to do for the most part. Like, you don't have to be creative to figure out how to do a refinance for a borrower. You tend to have to be a little bit more creative and knowledgeable in the purchase game, right? And so to me, there's a difference between a loan originator on the street who is an order taker and the one that is a consultant. And going back to your point about we've got to help agents find solutions, I think today, you've got to look at what financing solutions are available to help somebody make a bid over ask offer, right? Because to your point, if that cash buyer has an advantage because they can go right now, right? And they know how much cash they have to work with. So if they're making an offer on a home that's listed for $400,000, they know, hey, but I have $500,000 in cash. I can make a $450,000 offer. Where the person who's financing thinks that they don't have those same options, but they likely do, right? Yeah. And so I shared this morning with our team, like 1/3 of all conventional purchase mortgages we did in 2020 were 20% down. 2/3 were greater than 5% down. But if you look at it, and this is where like being a consultant matters, hey, if my borrower who comes to me and wants to put 20% down, instead, I say to them, hey, let's put 5% down. Let's buy out the upfront MI. Let's buy out the monthly MI by paying for it up front. You could have given yourself tens of thousands of dollars to work with for a bid over ask situation.
Yep.
Right? And that's what I mean by like, hey, those are the types of conversations that you need to be having with agents and with buyers if you're going to help them in the current market that we're in. So John, shifting gears a little bit, a lot of loan originators have come off probably their best year ever, probably a career year. And I think that...
I would say so.
Yeah. And so I think that we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we weren't kind of looking back on that a little bit and figuring out what we're going to do going forward. And I think there's two primary things lets you and I chat about is, one, I think you got to take a deep dive into where your business actually came from in 2020.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, if you want to go back a full 12 months, really, at the end of this month here, at the end of the first quarter, analyze the first 3 months, 2021, and go all the way back through 2020, and break out your business, look exactly where it came from. Any of the purchase business that you did in the last 12 months, you want to make sure you're reaching out to those agents, both the buyer's agent, the listing agent, handwritten notes, the phone calls, the weekly calls, staying in front of them, trying to get more business. And then looking at the mix of how much purchase to refi business you did. Many of us, like you said earlier on the call, we pivoted, we took advantage of these historic low rates. We've had several of us that have been in the business 10, 15 plus years that have a massive database that we were able to reach back to our past client database and help them save money by refinancing them. So look at the mix of your business, analyze that, and then put a plan together how you're going to stay on that same track as far as earnings 2021, so you're not disappointed at the end of the year falling short of your goal. Yeah.
I think, you talk database. I think one of the lessons learned out of 2020 is your database isn't only important during a refi boom.
It's gold.
Right? It's gold. And I think a lot of times we breeze over it. Like we don't put the value in it that needs to be there or should be there. Regardless of whether we're in a refi boom or not, there are opportunities there all the time. Cash out refinances. People do refinances for a lot of different reasons other than just low rates, but also sphere of influence, right? I mean, who is in your past client sphere of influence that might be an opportunity for you? I think a couple of things you brought up, I'll go a little bit deeper on if I can, is one, you said look at your product mix in terms, I'm assuming you meant like purchase versus refi, right? And so I'll tell you to go back a little bit further. Why don't you look at how many purchase transactions you closed in 2019? And I want you to compare that to how many you closed in 2020. You might have some surprises there, right?
100%.
Some of us are going to find that, hey, we actually had a decrease. Like had I not had refinances, I would have had a decrease in my volume and my income in 2020. Some of us will find that. Some of us will find that maybe we were flat and some of us probably had an increase. But I would encourage you to go back and not just look at 2020, but look at it compared to 2019. Another way that you could look at that is, to John's point, go back and look at your past transactions on both the buy side and the list side and who you did business with. Are there any names on that list that you've done business with in the past that you maybe haven't heard from in a while? Because chances are they found a new LO.
There's a good chance.
While you weren't looking.
Very
right?
good chance.
And so I think that's a good way to look back on your business too, because those are quick, immediate opportunities that you can probably get some traction on really quick. And then I think the other thing you need to take a look at, and this is also to your point, if I look at my 2020 business, how much purchase and how much refinance I did, if I eliminated 80% of the refinances, am I going to be happy with the way my 2021 looks? A lot of us would be. Some of us might not be. If you're in the camp of, I don't know that I'd particularly be happy with that, that's when you really got to dig into what am I going to do to bridge that gap.
Urgency right now.
Urgency, yes, I love that.
You and I know, as you also said earlier, is we've seen that drop in refinance applications over the last 3 and 4 weeks as rates ticked back up.
Yep.
And right now, for many of us, we're going to have one of our best months, again, closing months that we've had, in company history.
Yeah.
Part of that is because these are applications we started the end of last year and into January of this year when rates were still low. So what you like to say is we're busy working in our business right now. We're trying to get all these deals across the finish line, and you're going to wake up April 1st and be shocked to look at your pipeline maybe going forward. So. I mean, it's urgency. You got to get after it like right now.
Yeah, like right now.
And hopefully you've already started that plan.
Yeah, I love that sense of urgency, John. Before I got into the mortgage business, I was in retail, and one of the biggest indicators we used in retail was year-over-year sales. Okay, and the year-over-year sales allowed us to know, hey, are we growing? You know,
Sure.
and are we growing at the same rate as GDP and inflation? You know, all of those things, right? Measurables against other things. Here's the challenge with doing that in 2021. You're comparing year over year to the best year this industry has ever had.
Correct.
Right? And so when you think about it, we saw the first initial dive on rates about 2 weeks ago, a year ago.
Sure.
So 2 weeks ago, 2020.
Which, by the way, rates are about the same.
Yes.
Not too far
Yes.
off today. Just
Yes.
they started where they're at today. They continued a little bit of a dive down through through 2020, and now they've kind of just taken a quick upturn back to about where we started doing a lot of
Yeah.
refis a year ago. So if you're out there and you haven't pulled the trigger on a refinance, it's not too late.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I
Yeah.
saw Bill McDonald up in Tennessee just post he's now doing more refis the past 2 weeks than he did
Yeah,
all of
because
last
everybody's
year.
afraid they missed out.
Yeah, that sense
Right,
of
there's a lot of people
urgency.
coming- yeah.
If you're out there, get on it right now.
Yeah.
Get a hold of a loan officer in your market and see if there's still time to save some money.
I love the clarity on that, because you're right. We've been sitting
not
here
too
talking
late.
about like this is doom and gloom.
Right.
But the reality is it is the same
Rates
rate
are
we
still
were at a year ago.
fantastic.
You know,
yeah,
same rate
whether
we're at a
you're
year.
buying or refining.
So, going back to that year over year comparison, we saw a huge uptick in activity starting 54 weeks ago. Okay. So we're now finally at a point where we're going to start comparing year over year to when things really started to take off. Right. And I don't want that to make people fearful. Okay. Because it's hard to
100%.
it's hard to compare year over year to the best year that this industry has ever had. Right. So, like, I would avoid the conversations of, hey, our business
is down. Right.
Like, hey, it's not down. Like, if you really want to have a relative year over year comparison, compare it to 2019 instead of 2020, at least from Q2 to Q4. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the psychology of it is the past couple of weeks in talking to my team, my LOs, it's getting prepared mentally to understand that you still might be having one of your best years in the business, but it won't seem like 2020.
correct.
And you're going to mentally start waking up going, wow, I'm not slammed like I have been. What's going on?
Yeah.
You really got to take a deep dive, analyze your numbers, look at the applications you're doing week over week, and compare them, like you said, all the way back to 2019. And then you'll be surprised there. You might find that you're up 20, 30, 40%, but down 50 over 2020.
Yeah.
So you're still in a good space.
Yeah, nice job. So the last thing I say we talk about is this. We just had, not just in mortgage, but in real estate, a number of sales professionals come off their best year ever, which also means it was most likely their best financial year ever. Excuse me. My question is, how are you reinvesting that into your business growth for 2021 and going forward? Okay. So let's just say you're an LO or anybody in sales, and you got a surplus of 20K.
Okay.
Okay. What we're encouraging you to be thinking about is, how would you take that 20K and invest it into your business for long-term growth? And so, like, what are a couple of ways that some people might consider doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, this is still a good time to be thinking about adding team members, adding support staff, maybe a loan officer assistant, or a transaction coordinator to help sustain the flow that you have now, and really go out and do the marketing and the one-to-ones that you need to do to drive your business. I mean, you can't sit back thinking we're going to go backward. You've got to put the pedal to the metal here and go all in. I think, you've got to invest in your business. To your point, if you have the money to do it, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is it might be a while before you have a surplus like this again. And so, like, I would be thinking about, hey, how can I invest this into my business marketing wise? In other words, how can I use it to produce more leads? I think, to your point, you've got to be taking a look at leverage, right? And leverage has a cost. And so what are the leverage pieces that your business needs that are going to free you up to focus on the things that you should be doing? So, John, you talk a lot on this podcast about there's a difference between working on your business and working in your business. Working on your business is you going out and driving it. Working in your business is you shuffling paper, right?
Yeah, like, and really that 2020, there's no way to avoid that.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we were all stuck working in it. Your phones didn't stop ringing. You couldn't get in the car and go see people. You were an order taker. But now we've got to take the lead and go out and be the hunter again, right? Throw the line, cast the line, and bring some business back in, intentionally.
Yep. So I'd encourage you to take a look at, hey, is there a way that you could invest that into the right pieces of leverage that you need to help you grow your business for the long term? Because, one of the things I've learned over the years is that first piece of leverage, it takes a while to start bearing fruit. Like you're going to feel the immediate effects of, hey, I have leverage, I have help. I'm not having to do some of these things that I don't really want to do or shouldn't be doing in my business. But it takes a little while longer for it start to show an increase in sales. I promise you, if you do leverage right, it will always bring more business. If you do leverage right, it will always bring you more business. And so that's ultimately the goal that you should be looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So John, wrapping up, put a bow on it.
So 2021, my prediction is if you're out there still looking to refi, again, rates are still at historic lows. And if it doesn't quite make sense right now, be patient, stay tuned. I think you might see another bite at the apple here over the next few months.
Certainly could.
No crystal ball here, but we've got some people that do think that we're going to get a little bit of a dip.
Yep.
When, we don't know, but be ready for it.
Yep. And I just think too, I would encourage you, we talked a lot today about professional standards. Take a look at the analogy John and I gave about our wardrobe for work. That was just an example to help you to think about what are other things in my professional or my personal life that COVID affected, the lockdown affected, that if you took a deeper dive, you might say, hey, you know what? I can tighten that up a little bit. Sometimes it's not about the 180-degree turn, John. It's about the 1-degree turn.
You got it. Absolutely.
So thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast. On behalf of John Jones, I am Bryan Lovell. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if there's anything that you need, please know we're always here to serve.